Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Way Too Much JRMC podcast. This is your humble correspondent, John Ross Marcus Cox here. Coming back to you. It's at 2 o'clock on July 11th. Thanks for listening. Just to get a quick thing out here real quick, obviously I'm live streaming this, so if y'all can't hear me, or if I'm telling you to listen to something and you can't hear it or whatever, make sure you shoot me a text or make it or comment or something so I can know and get it squared away. I do feel like we're getting a little bit more technological savvy here. So you'll see I had a little intro and all that stuff. So we're going to try to keep making it a better presentation for you to make it worth listening. And we always promise to keep your time at the center of it all and make sure we're not wasting it. So yeah, again, everybody, you can follow me now at Way Too Much JRMC on pretty much any social, well, actually every social platform possible. You can listen to me on any of the audio podcast or video podcast platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, all that. So whatever your preferred mechanism is of getting your podcast delivery, just look us up. You'll be able to find me on there. So it's been 17 days, I think, since I had one up. It's been a few weeks since we've had Pinky on here. So we had my boy John Rogers on here talking with us. We are actually supposed to be doing one tomorrow, so be ready to tune back in for that. Today we have I got a topic for you that is certain to ruffle some feathers and piss some people off and all that. But I'm gonna be honest. Again, that's the whole point of this show. Is my goal is to have those conversations that people feel like they can't have out in the general public, but they want to. And so hopefully we can start that conversation a little bit, and get everyone else talking about it as well. Even though it's not just me talking about it, I've been spending all morning on conference calls and stuff like that. So so the topic at hand today is really going to be about parental rights, the role of government and public education in helping us rear our children and educate them the way that we see fit, and really just that general trust and partnership that is became a staple of the American public school system. Just full disclosure here, I'll let everybody know my mother is a retired Kentucky school teacher, taught for 30 years, still loves her kids, all that, but me and even her and I talked about this stuff a little over the weekend, and it really is kind of, it's a punch in the gut and very eye opening. And I have some thoughts later on that I'll discuss on why, where I think there may be a breakdown or, a shift in the public education persona, or what have you. So yeah, but as you all know, during the Kentucky Legislative General Assembly session 2022, there was several bills that came up that were curriculum oriented, parental rights oriented. We had HB 51 that myself and the people close to me were down there heavily advocating for, that would have ended the mask mandates for kids and done away with any kind of possible vaccine mandates for children when it came to the coronavirus vaccine, that kind of stuff. We were pushing for the SB 211, which was the obscenity law change. And you're seeing this, seeing that issue having to be tackled in states all over the country as well. You had the SB 1, SB 138, HB 487 were all curriculum changes. Here in the state of Kentucky, you had SB 40, Parental Bill of Rights. You had the SB 83, which was the transgender sports bill that passed. And I'm sitting here talking about Kentucky, but really, this is probably one of the first podcasts out that I'm going to be doing where it really has a national relevancy. These issues are being tackled from everywhere, from California to New York to Florida to Kentucky to Texas, all over the place. And as we move forward and states, the Supreme Court has sent some, 3 or 4 things that are very important back down to states to determine. As that continues to happen, it's going to be, even tougher to have these conversations on a national scale, because we have 50 laboratories of different laws that can be passed and all that, but it's okay. The big thing is just remember that again, we think politics should be downstream from culture and not culture being downstream from politics. So we need to be talking about these things, and hopefully by doing that, all these state legislatures will have to enact laws that are that are in line with the culture of their citizenry, of their constituents. And at least for the last my entire adult life, it doesn't seem like that's been the case. It seems like it has been totally focused on just the government passing something and then letting us as people catch up to the way of thinking. So I'm going to start off here by playing you a couple of clips that are, one is going to be of one of our Kentucky senators that's in leadership, very high up, represents one of the most affluent areas in the state of Kentucky, is a Republican. Seems like she's nice enough or whatever, but again, like, I'm not worried about if you're nice or you're mean or whatever. I was worried about what you say and what you do. So I'm gonna let you listen to that. And the other one is so that's Julie Rocky Adams. The other one is of a House member. His name is Killian Timoney, and I think these two clips are really going to sum up what we're up against as Kentucky citizens. But I guarantee you, we go to any state and we'd start seeing this. We'd start seeing this divide, or seeing where there's a breakdown between like where the Republican Party's headed and where current Republican office holders are, especially ones that have been in the game for longer than a few years. And so let's just flip one over to this real quick, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So, as I said, this first one, this is of Ms. Julie Rocky Adams. Senator Julie Rocky Adams represents the Anchorage, Kentucky area. So let's listen to this. Okay, so that conversation there, or that segment was referencing Senate Bill 40 here in the Kentucky Legislature, the 2022 session, which was basically just a parental bill of rights. If you go in and read it, which is a lot of things I feel like people aren't doing, they're opining without actually reading and digging into this stuff. But it didn't even do very much, if anything more than what normal people would assume was going on. So it certainly didn't do as much as HB 51 did on like putting the power of masking and vaccinating your children in regards to coronavirus back fully in the parents' hands. It certainly wasn't doing any kind of curriculum changes or advocating for any kind of curriculum transparency or curriculum accountability or anything of that nature. It certainly wasn't trying to get some of these books, pornographic books, out of elementary school libraries. It wasn't trying to just like determine whether or not a transgender person was going to be able to play in a the opposite sex sports. Somebody was a male and transitioned into being a female, if they could play girl sports. It certainly was not doing that. I mean, it was doing some basic stuff. So that leads me to have to assume that if something is not that intrusive, not that game changing, not that isn't that isn't out on the frontier blazing a trail for new legislation, to something pretty basic, that anything that's above and beyond that, I have to assume that you think that is absolutely radical. Okay, so I have communicated with Senator Adams. I assume she seemed as if she was on our side when it came to the masking and vaccine issues. At the end of the day, though, I know nothing ever moved on the Senate side of things. So again, let that be what it is. Like I tell everybody, I'm not out here trying to put politicians on the spot or call anybody out or any of that stuff. I just try to call a spade, and try to do so in a very transparent manner, which is why I try to do these things on live streams, because I don't want to even give off the appearance that I'm allowing myself to be edited and so that I don't look bad or any of that stuff. One of the missions of the way too much platform, way too much group, mine and Pink's and anyone else we ever bring on is to give you an open look on real life, everyday conversations between Americans that are educated, some not educated, some rich, some poor, some blue collar, some white collar, yada yada. Just like try to just real conversations, and I feel like the best way of doing that is via live stream. So there's that one. Here's the second one. Like I said, this was from Killian Timoney, and I really want you guys to pay attention to what this guy's saying. I mean, this one right here is absolutely horrific. Just give me 1 second. It's about 30 seconds long. Here we go. Here we go. I got to restart it. Sorry. All right, so I really want everybody to pay attention to what he just said there. He just said the quiet part out loud. This guy's a Republican in the Kentucky state legislature. So this is the state where supposedly we don't, have teeth and we don't wear shoes and we're all hillbillies and hicks and all that stuff. Well, this is a Republican state legislator here that thinks the second you put your kids on a bus to go to a public school, you forfeit the ultimate authority over your child and their education and what happens to them. Now, to some of y'all, you may say, well, that sounds reasonable. It may sound that way until it's your kid, right? Until it's your kid that they're trying to make do certain things, or it's your kid that they're saying that you are harming whenever they're at home, whenever you don't feel like you're harming them, you're just praying with them at the dinner table, so I don't really know if that is the mindset that our state legislators have, and I don't think it is the majority wise. I think that that's why you see some of these dudes got knocked out in the primaries or whatever, Ed Massey and some of them. That's why, because there is a small sect of the Republican Party. That nationally we call them rhinos, whatever you want to call them, the Adam Kinzinger types. I call them, or the Jeb Bushies, or the the country club Republicans, what I like to call them. That they are the old school big businessy types that really don't think that individuals are smart enough to make their own decisions. And I am country, I am backwoods a little bit, and I've always lived by this. And it's gonna get a little explicit on y'all here, but I've always believed that if somebody tells you they're some bitch, believe them. All right. So, but before that, I'm gonna try to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they're good people and all that. Well, homeboy right here just told me who he was. He just told me that the minute my kid goes out to the public school system, that he no longer thinks that as a parent I have the ultimate authority over my child. And that and that backs up, the HB 51, vote, the SB 83 vote, getting SB 211, the obscenity law changes. So again, that's that's the mass vaccine bill, transgender sports bill, the obscenity law changes. Go look at his voting record. Again, he's saying it here, but he's also doing it there, and he ain't voting for any of it. Okay, so again, this show isn't meant to harp on them or hammer on them or anything like that or put anybody on blast. It just is what it is. I'm putting myself out there with the information. You can do with it as you please and talk trash with me all you want. But I believe this stuff, and I believe people deserve to have the information. So that brings us to my next point. I got 3 topics. I'm gonna bring them all together at the end. as far as like parental rights goes, government role in, education, our partnership with the school system, all that. And then, so, I mean, guys, there's just such a treasure trove of information out there on the internet. I mean, just like going into Facebook groups and, parental rights organizations, or, looking into some of your enemies' sites and their follows and their mentions and all that stuff on Twitter and everything like that. But found a letter here from the Department of Justice. This went out to all school systems. I'm pretty sure I got this one from one of our Oldham County affiliates. That is basically the Department of Justice, so the Biden administration, are making it clear, okay, that schools are going to be at risk of losing any type of federal funding, okay, if they don't assure or ensure that all children, specifically transgender youth, like all youth, that they're treated fairly with dignity in accordance with federal law, all that. Again, that it comes without being, being said. We want to treat people with respect, and we want to, love each other and be kind to one another, and all that. But we still have to try to instill the values in our children that we want to instill in them. I want my children to be kind to everyone they come across. It's not their job to try to force their beliefs on others or anything like that, but you still should be able to express those beliefs or whatever. So, but this right here, when I read this letter, and we'll read a little bit more of it here, I take it, it looks as if it's a threat to schools, okay, that they're going to lose their funding. It says the department is also charged with the coordination and enforcement of federal laws that protect individuals from discrimination in a wide range of federally funded programs and activities, intentionally erecting discriminatory barriers to prevent individuals from receiving gender-affirming care implicates a number of federal legal guarantees. We're going to define affirm here in a second. State laws and policies that prevent parents or guardians from following the advice of a healthcare professional regarding what may be medically necessary or otherwise appropriate care for transgender minors may infringe on rights protected by both the Equal Protection and the Due Process Clauses of the 14th Amendment. I want everybody to let's take very specific attention, pay very specific attention. That says, from following the advice of a healthcare professional regarding what may be medically necessary or otherwise appropriate care. So this right here, they're saying this as if schools are telling parents they can't do certain things, or I guess they're kind of alluding that if you're telling parents that their transgender kids can't play sports or whatever, that they may be violating the 14th Amendment. But here's my question. What if a school finds out that a parent is refusing to allow their children to undergo these treatments, this care, this medically necessary care, even though one healthcare professional has deemed it necessary? So what if a parent goes out and one doctor says it's necessary, but they go get a second opinion, and the second opinion says, listen, they're kids. Yes, you don't want to berate them over this or diminish their feelings or anything like that. But from my professional opinion, they're not mature enough yet mentally to make such an important life-changing decision. At that point, is the government going to say, well, if a right is a right, it's a right no matter if you're a child or an adult? So as a child, you have this right. Your parents are trying to keep it from you. Therefore, you're harming a child. And that's going to be a theme we're going to get into today, is this like word salad, this like seizing of language and manipulation of language and how they're using it against us, and all that. So this moving on here, it says, in addition, the Due Process Clause protects the right of parents to seek and follow medical advice to safeguard the health of their children. A state or local government must meet the heavy burden of justifying interference with that right. Here's the big key word here. Since it is well established within the medical community that gender-affirming care for transgender youth is not only appropriate, but often necessary for their physical and mental health. Is it well established? I'm being serious. I'm is it well established that gender affirming care is necessary for positive outcomes? Again, let's define this word here. Let's define, just like we did with abortion. We had to go. You got to get back to the root of the discussion, the stuff that's boring, the stuff that you wish you could move on past. But the problem is, if your terms aren't in agreement, then you can't move on. Okay, so to affirm something means to state. This is straight from dictionary.com. Googled it. Affirming means you're stating something as a fact or asserting strongly and publicly. And the second verb definition is offer someone emotional support or encouragement. So if affirming is stating something as a fact and asserting strongly and publicly, that they are saying here that it's well established in the medical community that stating as a fact that whatever gender a child says they are is what they are is not only appropriate but often necessary for their physical and mental health. That's what they're trying to say is medically established. Medically, it's already been, there's just no reason to fight back on it. All right, now I challenge everyone, if you're not a member of the Daily Wire, go join the Daily Wire. Watch Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? Man, it's going to blow your mind. I won't even begin to try to act like I can do what they have done over there. Daily Wire is really doing some important stuff. But go watch that, and you're going to see what I'm talking about here. So, but going right back to this, my question then becomes, so this letter is in regards to state and local governments must meet these heavy burdens and all that. What happens, or shall I say, when is the government going to tell parents that their children have due process rights, and that when they decline to follow the advice of one medical professional, even if they have other ones telling them something the exact opposite, because the minor child is being affirmed over here, obviously they're going to agree with whatever they're, we all seek like positive reinforcement, right? Just because the child agrees with that person because they're agreeing with them, you are neglecting and violating their own due process rights by not going with the opinions of the doctor that they want to follow. I mean, how far are we from that? I don't think we're far from it all. I think we're already in it. I think we saw it with masks. We're seeing it with vaccines. We still have, the National Education Association. You can go look it up. Just go follow their Twitter account. Over the last week, they've already said they are already trying to push a national vaccine and masking mandate in every public school in the United States. I mean, in what world are we living where that's still even a topic of discussion? These people they just don't want to move on. They don't want things to get better. Okay, so then it says over here, going into we'll stay in that same part. It says categorically refusing to provide treatment to a person based on their gender identity, for example, may constitute prohibited discrimination under Section 1557. As the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has stated, restricting an individual's ability to receive medically necessary care, including gender-affirming care. Affirm means to state as fact from their healthcare providers solely on the basis of their sex assigned at birth or their gender identity may also violate Section 1557. So they're talking about this specific Section 1557 right now, but if denying that person their right to make their own choice is violating federal laws and regulations, how do we not all see that the next step is going to be that when parents do it, it's also a problem? We're not far. We're already there, people. We're there. It says all persons should be free to access the services, programs, and activities supported by federal financial assistance without fear that they might face unlawful discrimination for doing so. Then it goes on to kind of be, talk down to you a little condescending. Thank you for your continued commitment to improving the well-being of children. That's one of those key words, the well-being, and their families. The department is always available to help ensure that state and local governments, many of which are recipients of federal financial assistance, meet their obligations under federal law. Please contact the Department of Civil Rights for assistance. guys that are at war with us. This is the Biden administration right here. Now they're trying to, like, even if your school, even if your school agrees with you, even if your school wants you as a parent to be able to make these decisions, they want to keep sex education out of third grade classrooms. They're telling them they're not going to allow them to do that without them risking losing their federal funds. So we got to decide, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to say, stick it up your rear end, keep your money. Are we able to do that? I mean, can we as a state, as communities, municipalities, can we afford the salaries promised to teachers and administration and, custodians, people that work in the cafeteria? Can we afford all those salaries on our own, just in state funds? I don't think we can. So basically it comes down to this. We got some tough decisions to make, because if, again, somebody tells me that they're the real deal, I'm gonna assume they are. They're telling you what their plans are right here. And so basically, as soon as SB 83 goes in Kentucky now, as of this school year, if you are a transgender female, so you're male, now you've transitioned to being female, you can't play in sports 6th grade through college. Well, the Department of Justice is making it clear. So this was Oldham County, but they've sent us to every school administration in the state of Kentucky and across the United States. If you do that, and we withdraw all federal funding for all those activities and programs. Me personally, I don't believe them. I don't think they got the cojones to do it. All right, but but that brings me to my next point here, and the next thing I want to talk about. So obviously, we see now our state government doesn't necessarily agree with parents having a say in all this stuff, or at least the establishment people don't. We do have great people in our legislature that are making a difference, and got even more headed down there in this next session, and going across countrywide. We got good people. I mean, you're seeing that Hispanic lady that won in that Democrat district. She seems phenomenal, and they're coming after her everything they got. We saw Young can win. We see what DeSantis's approval ratings are like, but it's happening all across the country. And I hate that I have to make this a Republican Democrat thing, but it just is what it is. Like the people that support certain things. But again, I'm trying to point out that not even all Republicans are our teammates in all this stuff. And so, but my next point was, I told you my mother's a teacher, and so we talked about some of this stuff, just like parental rights, and I'm going to be discussing obviously the transgender movement a little bit, for the most part here today. But really, I'm looking at it through the lens of parental rights, and it's just one issue that can be extrapolated. So don't think I'm just picking on that one group of kids. And these, nothing I'm saying is aimed at a kid or their situation or their experiences, any of that stuff. It goes without being said, we all care about all children, and we don't want anyone being ostracized or bullied or any of that stuff. But again, like, I'm not going to let the fear of people attacking me in that way keep me from speaking. Because if you don't know me personally, like, you shouldn't be willing to think I'm a great guy from just what you hear from others either. I'm worried about the people that are close to me in my community that I coach with, that my kids go to school with, that my kids play with, all that stuff. Like, y'all know who I am, y'all know my heart. And really, at the end of the day, what someone out in the western part of the United States thinks about me doesn't matter. Now, obviously, I want them to listen. If he's going to grow, it's going to have to grow like that. But I just really hope that I can get people to hear to listen to what I'm saying, and not just immediately politicize it or lump me over into this some crazy right winger January 6th or whatever. It's like, this is a kid's deal, and again, I think this is a real conversation that really needs to be had. So myself, along with I'm sure a whole bunch of the rest of you guys, are I'm in several parental groups. For the county I'm in, for the state I'm in. There's some national ones. I'm also in some teaching groups and stuff like that. Just kind of, I like to keep up with, where the, culture is of different type, different industries, that kind of thing. And again, like I'm not anti-teacher. I mean, most of the people that were huge influences positively on my life were teachers. And so please, teachers, like, hear me on this before tune me out and think that I'm just like a terrible person here. But in one of our groups, and I'm not going to say what group it was, or I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but a post was made that came from the website or someone had asked the question of we'll call it the Gulson group. So it's the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. They're the leading national education organization focused on ensuring safe schools for all students. So again, like that word safe they have militarized that word. I mean, it's like community schools, mental health, harm, safe, kindness, civic engagement, healthy youth. Like these are words, like as soon as you hear them, you should throw up red flags and you should be like, okay, I'm gonna do a little more research before I make any kind of judgments on the content that's about to be put in front of me. But they were going into talking here about keeping parents in the loop whenever minor children are coming out of the closet at school and telling everyone there that they're gay or lesbian or whatever the correct politically correct term is. I'm not trying to be demeaning or anything I say like that isn't a correct term. It's out of ignorance. It's not out of purposeful hurt. So just tell me if I'm saying something the wrong way. I think I said, there's been times in the past where I used the word hearing impaired or something, and someone told me like, no, the term is hard of hearing, and like, okay, great, that's what I'll use now. I said I didn't know. If you don't have someone in your family that is hard of hearing, you're not in the know on correct language and all that. But again, that person came to me and told me that, but didn't assume I was a terrible person. She assumed that I was ignorant to the fact and told me, and then we moved on. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the post basically was a question that was posed that said, like, isn't it better to work with parents and keep them in the loop? I don't understand why you would want to keep secrets from parents. Okay, and so this is going to be the meat of today's episode. We're already 33 minutes in. I'm going to try. This is probably going to be at least as long as the rest of it. But the Gleason staffer basically answered that telling the parent puts the child at risk. She said a lot of students are not living in safe situations. So you want to be affirming in the classroom so that the student is able to learn and not putting the child at risk at home. She said that if a child hasn't outed himself to his parents, then the teacher is careful not to tell the parent. This includes not using the child's preferred name and pronoun in front of the parent if the parent doesn't already support that. In other words, the teacher makes a judgment that the parent is a possible danger to the child. So again, this is the leading national education organization focused on ensuring safe schools for all students. So this isn't just some fly-by-night organization. Listen to all those keywords. Telling the parent put the child at risk of what? Death? Disciplinary action? A lecture? A tough conversation? Tough conversations with my children all the time. It's not always to make them feel bad about themselves. Sometimes it's because I'm an ignorant parent and I did something wrong, and I want to make sure that I tell them what I did and explain to them what the issue was and why I think I did it, yada yada. It says that you want to be affirming in the classroom. So we want to be stating, again, let's go back to the definition. We want to state as fact or assert strongly and publicly that whatever that child says is good, is right, is correct, is reality. All right? So we want to be affirming in the classroom so that the student is able to learn and not putting the child at risk at home. Think about that. In other words, the teacher makes a judgment that the parent is a possible danger to the child. You're going to see this. What I'm about to do is I'm going to go through. So to this post, we had a 20, when I printed it off, it was a 22-page exchange to myself and other posters. Again, I won't use anybody's name. I'm not telling anybody the group that it was in or anything like that. With 3 confirmed educators in the state of Kentucky. Okay, so they're confirmed. I'm going to say where they're teaching in the thread. One of them tells you where they live, and now on their public profiles they tell you where they live. But it's all over the state. Okay, so we like North Kentucky, Western Kentucky, East Kentucky, and what's going to be clear after we do this is things aren't the way things aren't the way we thought they were in the state of our public education system in our country. And just to kind of tell you all a little about what I think may be happening here, because again, my mom's teacher still teaches. We're in a generational shift in educators. Okay, people like my mother went in for all the right reasons because she wanted to raise up, good kids in a traditional American valued household. She wanted to be kind to them. She wanted to love them. She thought a lot of their parents, even the bad ones, she cared about their parents. She cared about the parents too. But she also was not. You didn't go into teaching if you were an activist. Like you didn't. Especially if you grew up. I grew up in Southeast Kentucky. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. Sex and drugs and homosexuality and all that stuff. This wasn't stuff that the teachers of that day and age were comfortable talking about. So they're not confrontation. These aren't confrontational people, whether it be men or women teachers, male or female. That generation wasn't. They're just not confrontational. They are like the child rearing type. Okay, and it's not saying anything bad about them. I wanted to be a teacher myself and coach and all that, right? But today, you're still getting those type of people to go into education. They have all the right reasons for doing it. But you're also having a segment of the population that is arrogant and ignorant and self-righteous and unwise, but think they are all the opposite of all those things, that they have all the answers already. All right, and they're going into education because they think you as parents, us as parents, are doing a bad job and are not forcefully inserting these social justice issues into our households strong enough. So by God, they're going to do it for us because it's harming our children by them not getting that. That's what they think. So for all you teachers that think I'm talking about all teachers, I'm not. But the problem is, let's say it's 10% of them that are like that. They are the opposite of you. They're louder, they're more vocal, they're more active than you are. So they're taking hold of your profession, and they're running with it, and they're ruining it for everybody. And so, again, I'm not lost on the fact that someone could say, "Well, this is anecdotal, right? The stuff I'm about to talk about here, stuff that was said by the teachers, and the responses from actual parents." I'm not lost on the fact that somebody could say it's anecdotal. Here's the deal. Fine. Go Google this stuff. Go look it up on Twitter. Look it up on Facebook. When you go to your basketball game later on, go find someone and talk to them about it and see if what we're talking about here isn't correct. I was on a conference call about an hour and a half ago. The woman was in California. She's seen the same stuff happen there that we're seeing happen here, and that we're seeing happen in Tennessee, and we're seeing happen in Georgia, and we're seeing happen in New York. It's everywhere. And I tell everyone, first of all, I'm a very proud Kentuckian. I got Kentucky tatted on my back, and it's not for the school; it's for the state. Right? I have a lot of my mojo's caught up in my Kentucky boyness, right? But Kentucky's such a central state. We ain't Southern, we ain't Northern, we ain't Midwestern. We're kind of just a melting pot of all over the place. So, but people think we're backwards. So if something's happening here, in somewhere that's supposedly a super conservative state, which I think we are, then it's happening everywhere. We're seeing it happen in Texas, Houston, those areas. Let's just dig into this. Okay, so I set the stage for what the post was about. And this teacher, and I'll tell you if I'm going to a different teacher, right, on what was said. And so obviously I'm just going to be taking part of what they said. I'm not going to read their entire comments all the time, but one of their responses was, and this was the very first comment under the thread, was, in my district, we ask the kid if their parents know, and what if they have told or are planning to tell their parent. Kids have been significantly harmed by telling parents this info, which leads to a much higher risk of suicide for LGBTQ plus youth. Nowhere did she cite any kind of stats that said that people are more at risk of suicide because they told their parents. She's just assuming that. So she gave no data to back that up. And she goes on to say the only things that are required for teachers to tell someone is risk of harm to self, others, or abuse. And this continues to be a recurring theme. And some of the comments I'm going to say from this person, I mean, they're absolutely horrifying. Okay. Then someone came back and said, okay, if government schools disagree with the parents' values and beliefs, that means it's okay to usurp their authority. Her response was, yes, if it causes harm to the student. Then we come back to this. Who is defining harm? If you're someone and you think it's harmful simply to not, let's use the word not affirm someone's perceptions of their gender identity or just identity in general, okay, then like if you think you may think it's harmful if someone is not stating that those feelings as a fact and asserting strongly and publicly that they are so. If you think that's harm, then that's going to lead to one thing. Okay, if you don't think it's harmful, it's going to lead to another. So it's a totally unsustainable concept that she's going after here. Okay, let's just flip on back through here. If someone kept making a point, if you had kids, you may think otherwise. Whatever. I think she had said that she didn't have parents or whatever. I'm sorry, that she didn't have kids or whatever earlier. A few steps up, she says, even if I had my own kids, it's their business what they do with their own sexual orientation and gender identity. It's not mine at all. So, as their teacher, as their educator, as the person that has been entrusted with that child's education, it's not your business at all. And again, she's saying if I had my own kids, right? So she's saying it's not her business at all if her own children think they're trapped in the wrong body. For those of you that aren't watching, I'm silent right now because I'm stunned. This person obviously isn't a parent. Luckily, she's already admitted it, or I'd be trying to get CPS out there for her children. But it had already been established in this thread that we're talking about minor children, elementary age children. If it's not our role to steward them and guide them into the values that we think they should have, or into the lives that we think they should have. Sorry, y'all probably hear my kids up there screaming. But then what is our business as a parent? And again, I think she's making it perfectly clear that she doesn't think it's our business. It's the kid's business, and then ultimately, I guess, the government's whenever they come in and think that it's their business or whatever. But for me, I see that as just a total neglect of your child's psyche or whatever, and that you're going to let them try to figure it all out on their own, and they're not going to because it's impossible. You can't know what you don't know. All right, so we'll move on to the next one here, though. So this is the same person. She tells another poster, I'll never stop fighting for what I think is right, even if I had my own kid. I tell parents all the time what I am, and I'm not going to tell them. They can be mad at me all they want. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. I know I'm doing my job, which is most definitely not to please the parent. Your rules aren't enforced by teachers. Not her job to please the parent. And I think that is indicative of a lot of our public servants today. They don't understand who's writing their paychecks, who's paying for their service they are providing, whether it be a state legislator or a teacher or whatever. It might be a property value assessor. You absolutely work for the parents. People in Jefferson County, Kentucky know that more than ever right now because we were just in a battle on taxes being raised. Our school, our teacher union up here, they think that they should be maxing out the max possible tax increase every time it comes up for renewal, regardless if you're paying $5 a gallon for gas or not. And I guarantee you go to any other major city in America, whether it be Chicago, New York, Miami, Austin, anywhere in California, probably, I guess, other than the rural parts of the state, and they're getting the same thing from their unions. All right, again, I'm not beating up on teachers, but your unions are they're your representatives. You're literally paying dues to them to represent you, and that's how they're representing you. When these other teachers are on Facebook and they're saying these things, they represent you. I tell my kid went to stay the night at a friend's house last night. I said, when you're there, you represent me, boy. You represent my last name. You represent all the years I spent building a good name. So anytime you act while you're there at their house, you remember that. So that's the same thing goes for people that are in the same profession as you. Somebody's not being ethical in your profession, you got to call them on it. And one day I'm in the insurance business, and I'll be talking about some of that stuff that I think is unethical, immoral, or whatever that Republicans probably ain't gonna like, the businessy people ain't gonna like. But I can't wait to do it, and hopefully some of my liberal buddies or liberal people are gonna stick around and hear some of those things here. So let's keep moving on. We got a lot to cover. She goes on to say, I don't have any authority with the child to do anything regarding gender identity or sexual identity or whatever. They figure that out for themselves. It's not for any of us to decide. But I will tell you that academics is definitely not the only thing expected of teachers these days. We help them when they feel sad or mad or scared at school. We help them make friends with people who have similar interests. We can teach them all kinds of skills if they want to. Y'all need to quit with indoctrination and grooming talk. Here's the one thing I want to say is kids don't just figure shit out on their own. It's kind of why the teaching profession exists, because they won't just figure out how to read. They won't just figure out how to write. They won't just figure out how to do math, which is why so many people can't read and write nowadays. I think in Jefferson County, we have like a 38% literacy rate. 38%, and I might be high on that. People that can read and write at grade level. And so, that just like brings the point to me. It's like, if we can't trust our education system to be intentional about educating the next generation, then what are they even there for? If they're not there to help us instill the values that are important to us as families, as Americans, what are they there for? And we have to realize, not everything in life is a zero-sum game. Education is in the sense of there's only so much time in the day. And there's times of your life where you can learn quicker and easier than others. So it's a non-renewable resource. That time when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, when you're the neuroplasticity in your brain is at its greatest, if you don't get what you need in that time frame, it doesn't matter if you get it when you're 13, 14, 15, or when you're 35 like me, you're not going to learn how to speak Spanish when you can't speak English like I can. Right? So anytime we spend on one topic or subject, by default, is removing time that can be spent towards other subjects or be allocated towards other topics. So it's the most valuable resource we have is time with our children. And we are entrusting the public education system to give them what they need, and they're not preparing them to do that. And there might be other reasons for it. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but we're making it harder. Okay, so moving on. Another comment about how it's not teacher's job to do such and such. Same teacher says, parents do not have a universal right to know everything their kid says and does. Again, their kid. Kid means minor, in my opinion. And in the context of this right here, it was. She says she doesn't get the statement, I'm questioning whether I'm trans. I get, I am trans, and my pronouns are XYZ. I say, okay, and we move on with today. And again, not causing harm, but your fear is pretty evident. She says, sue me all you want. You yell at me all you want. I'm doing what I think is best, and you can move on to another district. What I'm doing isn't illegal. It is very common practice in education. And this will be, again, this is where when I say there was multiple teachers in this thread, it's because I knew this person was saying some of these things, and if no other teachers had opined, then it would have been very easy to say, well, just one. But multiple other ones will come to her defense in a second. So it's very common practice in education. Someone goes on to say, you don't know the student except what they want you to know. You truly don't have any idea of who they truly are or what their life is outside of school. You obviously don't comprehend that by having more contact with parents, teachers learn more about students' needs in their environment. And if this teacher kept going back at parents, okay, and people in this thread, and none of them were saying anything hateful about children or about teachers or anything. It was, the whole argument was about this partnership that's supposed to exist between teachers and parents when it comes to educating and rearing our children. Our economy depends on it. Our culture depends on it. You know, like someone argued the future of civilization as we know it depends on it. So all they were trying to say, all the main point of what people were trying to get across this lady so far was parents have to be involved in this stuff. Quit assuming the worst of every parent because a kid tells you they're afraid to tell me about something. Of course they are. Like, hyperbole is second nature to children. Actually, it might be first nature. They don't know how to not be like that. The sun revolves around them. Like, you're an adult that's supposed to have some wisdom and be able to understand the nuances in life to where you should, like, you're supposed to realize that you should be telling this stuff to parents. And so here she goes again. Our whole district has paid for a whole year of LGBTQ plus training for our staff. So no, legally, no adult who has contact with your kid has to tell you anything they say. Once again, it is a common practice in education. Your few teacher contacts versus my statewide trainings aren't sufficient to prove otherwise. I would never work with someone who would force me to out a student who isn't ready to do so publicly. A couple things in this statement. She says, so no, legally, no adult who has contact with your kid has to tell you anything they say. We're not talking about any damn adult. We're talking about their teacher. The person that the parents are supposed to trust more than anyone else. Supposed to see as an ally more than anyone else outside of, like, you know, the nuclear family unit. It's common practice in education. I would never work with someone who would force me to out a student who isn't ready to do so publicly. Nobody's telling you to out the kid on Twitter. Nobody's telling you to put it on the gram. Get up on TikTok and start doing videos. Nobody's telling you to do that shit. Nobody is. And yes, I'm going to get a little explicit here because I'm getting a little pissed off. All right, but no one's telling you to do that. We're saying you should tell the parents. Not so the parents can pistol whip a kid and knock them out at the house, because you should assume that Every parent cares about their kid. I care about my kid more than you do, regardless of what you think. I love them more. You have no idea what I put myself through at night when I lay my head down to sleep at night, and how much I think about the stuff I missed or got wrong, or I got 4 kids, so it's like, oh gosh, that I love the other 3 more than this one today. Is that gonna bother them forever? Like, stop assuming you're the only one that cares. God, it's just so self-righteous and so, God, it's just terrible. Okay, so moving on. School has to have parental consent for a field trip and medical care. This is what someone said to her. Here's the key point, though. They don't think they should have to have your consent for either of those things. If they want to take them to Planned Parenthood to see abortions happening on demand, they think they should be able to, if they've deemed by panel that they should be allowed to do that. They think you're doing harm if you say no. Same thing with the medical procedures. You saw it this year, the last 2 years in school systems across the United States. I particularly saw it because I was fighting for Kentucky kids to get them out of mask and to get them out from this vaccine mandate. They think they know what is best, and that you are just some dumb hillbilly. If you're in Kentucky, right? If you're in Texas, they think you're just some dumb idiot cowboy, ignorant cowboy, right? Or if you live somewhere they don't have anything like that to say to you. It's like you're from Washington D.C. Oh, you must be an insurrectionist. That's what they think, right? If you don't agree with it, so that argument doesn't work for them because they don't think that they should have to have consent for either one of those. Okay, because you're not giving consent, not signing the field trip, to them, guess what? You're doing a harm to your child. That's what they're saying, right? Moving on. Back to that teacher. I'm not saying I have any authority over parents, but parents don't likewise have authority over me to demand that I tell them everything their kid says to me. If they ask me not to tell you, I won't, and there isn't anything you can do to me legally. My job is safe because that is our district policies. It has nothing to do with politics or religion. Your views are your views, and you are welcome to them. They just aren't legally binding. But that is exactly what our counselors do and what our counselors ask teachers to do for kids who don't want their parents to know. We're saying the quiet parts out loud over and over and over and over. And I'm going through this whole thing. You can cut it off all you want, but I mean, it's imperative that we drive this point home. It's obvious this person, this teacher, does not see you the parent, as a part of the team. You are a hindrance to the values they are hoping to instill, to the cult they are trying to make them be. They are trying to groom them to be a part of. And there's no other way to put it other than that. That's what's occurring. Okay? Keep moving on. Same teacher. I am always a safe place for my kids to talk about whatever they want. I will never condone outing a student to a parent. Okay? Are we just talking about outing them from a transgender standpoint? I'm setting this up for later. So, like, if you stop listening before you get to that point, know that I'm going to talk about this later on. What if that student comes to you and it's a 12-year-old girl and they tell you they're blowing some 16-year-old boy on the school bus, or just blowing them in general? Say not on school bus. Maybe you'll say it's illegal on school bus, but they're having sex with a 16-year-old boy. Any illegal, is it? They're both minors, or 15. Let's say 15. Maybe 16 would make it illegal. 15. What if they tell you they're having anal sex with another? What if it's a 12-year-old? They're having anal sex with another 12-year-old. What if they're having sex with an adult? What if they are smoking marijuana? Well, they're smoking marijuana when they're 13. That's something that's illegal, yeah. But most people, myself included, doesn't look at marijuana the same way I look at cocaine or opiates. Are you going to out them then? Nothing you've said yet makes me think you have the cognitive abilities to discern between what any parent would think was relevant and wouldn't. So the way to get around that and make it a sustainable thing is anything that comes up that is a possible possible issue, you should just be transparent about it. I think a lot of teachers, this is my mom's statement, she would go to the principal. She's not the type to be able to sit down and have a conversation with the parents. I think Johnny may, think that he likes boys, or he may think that he's a girl, or, vice versa, or anything other than that. May think they're a Democrat, or maybe they're a Republican, or may, in the South, every dad wants their little boy to play football, right? Like, not every teacher's willing to go to that big macho dad and say, I don't think your son wants to play football. I think he'd rather be on the chess team. So you should be doing what you can to get the information to the parent. And what I told my mother was, you should tell the principal, but the next step should be, listen, I'm not comfortable having this conversation with the parents, so I'm coming to you. I think it's more your role. But I'm going to circle back to you, and if you haven't done it, then I'll have to step up, because I'm the one in the line of fire. I'm in the middle, right? So this is a very important one right here. Parents do not have every right to know the private things about their kids, especially if it's something the parent is against or will try to tell them they are wrong. Drugs are one thing I do tell parents about. That's not something I keep a secret, but that's harmful and illegal. Keeping their sexual or gender identity only harms parents who insist on knowing this info before the kid is ready to say. It isn't demeaning a parent by any means, because they don't automatically have the right to that info. Okay, so again, let's go back to the determination of the definition of the word harm. To her, drugs are harmful, so she's going to tell you. But knowing your child suffers, maybe not even the word suffer. I don't even give it the negative connotation. But knowing that your child is dealing with or has the traits of someone that data backs this statement up, even super left-wing data, okay, backs this up, that 1 in 5 transgender youths attempt suicide. 1 in 5. That's 20%. So parents don't have a right to know that. They don't have a right to know they're dealing with something that, again, you're assuming I'm going to hate my kid and I'm going to talk down to them and I'm going to demean them. Maybe I'm just a parent that loves my kid, and maybe I will parent slightly differently if I know they're dealing with these things, because I wouldn't want to reinforce to them that they're awful people by continually talking about how, when I'm watching TV, the husband and wife or the mom and dad, whatever, like, how about you give me the benefit of the doubt and assume I want to I'm going to be a good parent for my kid, and that I know what's best for them, and that I'm going to continue loving them forever when you're going to have them for a year. Again, so don't think you're not doing harm. You are directly doing harm to these children by not telling their parents. The people they look to the most for love and support are not going to know. So when you go back and say that these people are committing suicide because their parents are like talking down to them, how are they doing that if they don't know about it? You're saying it's common practice that teachers don't tell parents. You said that, not me. You did. So watch what you put out there, and you got to think about this stuff. Again, she made the comment before that the teachers make the judgment call if parents are a possible danger to the child. Someone else made a comment, and I totally agree with this. When the public education system collapses, when every other state does what Arizona just did, and it has a wide open voucher system where the money follows the student to wherever they want to go. When it collapses, you will have yourself to blame, because you thought you were in total control and you didn't have to listen to any parental input. All right. So she goes in to say, I don't have to tell the parent, especially not if the parent is going to kick them out or disown them or send them to a conversion camp. Where are these camps at? I mean, she keeps saying this, and people kept asking her, where are these camps? Where are these camps? So someone says, this is not your role as an educator. Sure it is. It is my job to make sure kids are living in a safe, supportive home. It is not your job, It is not your job as a parent to make them be exactly what you want them to be. Actually, yes, it is. It is my job as a parent to instill the values that I think are important into my children so they can continue to pass along those values and beliefs that I have. So, it's obvious this person doesn't have children, right? But to think it's not the job of a parent to make them be exactly who you want them to be. Like, okay, it's not. Let's back and say this. They're not going to end up being exactly who I want to be. They're going to end up being who they are, and it's going to be a result of all those parenting, all those little bitty decisions that my wife and I, that their mother and I make along the way in how we parent them. It's going to be a result of that. Some of it may be negative. So they might rebel on some of the values. I don't have all of the values that my like mom had, that my grandparents that raised me had. But as I get older, I see myself adopting more and more of them because I see what they were trying to do. They might not have done it very well or very effectively, but I get the point now. It just took me a little time to get a little wisdom and understand a little bit of nuances around life. But this idea that we let children decide their own values and morals and principles is hilarious to me. You're an idiot. There's no other way to put it. It is freaking scary. You are an educator. What do you think you're doing every day? You're making it your job to instill the values. The value that you think, one of those values being that you don't think parents have any control over children. That most likely they're bad. What they're trying to do to you, they're trying to limit your life. That's your value that you're instilling in all your children. And all the children you're teaching. Someone says a 2-hour seminar on something doesn't make you an expert on determining what is best for children any more than me going to a 2-hour seminar makes me a brain surgeon. She says, I don't have 2 hours of training on this. I have years of it. It's common sense. I have no legal obligation to tell you anything about your kids unless they are suicidal, homicidal, or being abused. That's it. You aren't entitled to know anything else about your kid that they tell me. I thought it was unless they were inflicting harm on themselves, harm on others. Harm isn't just suicidal, homicidal behavior. Are you slowly realizing that you're maybe being a little too expansive here? Someone says, it's not your job to raise my children. She says, keeping a secret isn't raising them. And this person says, keeping a secret is grooming. It got me thinking. And anybody who's dove into this mindset knows that it's cult-like behavior, right? These people they're in a cult. But I wonder how many little boys, during this last, and I'm gonna piss people off here talking about this, during the, Catholic priest sexual abuse saga. I wonder how many little boys continued to be abused and feel totally powerless because they had entrusted themselves to their priest and just thought them keeping that secret on both ends, the priest and themselves, was making them a good person, that they were valuing that relationship. So what this person's doing is they're feeding their own ego. Whenever it makes you feel good that an 8-year-old tells you something they don't tell their parents, you're the one with the issue. You're the one that needs to be propped up because you need 8-year-olds to like you. I don't need my 8-year-old to like me. The kids I coach, I don't need them to like me. I need them to know that I have their best interests at heart and I respect them, and that's why I bring my A game every day. And that's why I tell their parents stuff, and that's why I talk to them endlessly and give feedback, all that stuff. My brothers and I'm 12 years older than my youngest older brother. We used to have this thing called brother code growing up. Basically meant we don't snitch on each other. Well, really, what it was for me was I was so much older than them. I wanted them to be able to see me do stuff and me not get in trouble. But as we got older, they would tell me things, and of course I would tell my mom. I'm old enough to be their damn uncle. I'm not gonna let bad shit happen to my little brothers. I mean, it's just common sense stuff. I mean, so this person says, nope, just being a respectful human to another human who asks you to help them. Maybe you should consider why your kid would be more honest with me than with you. You're an adult, lady. They're children. And truth, like it or not, truth is they're not prepared to deal with the shit you're saying they need to be dealing with on their own and with you. So if you're the only person they've told, they're going through life experiencing hundreds of other people every day that don't know this. They're dealing with it internally. They're battling it internally, all alone, because you want to keep a secret for a little kid, and not bring in their parent. Shame on you. Shame on freaking you. You're a terrible person. Maybe they're being honest with you because they don't respect you as an adult. Maybe they see you as an equal. I don't want kids to see me as an equal. I'm an adult. You may think that's terrible. I don't give a damn if you think it's terrible or not. That doesn't mean I can't treat them with respect. Doesn't mean I can't treat them as human beings. But there's a differentiating factor there. I'm an adult. You're a child. It's my responsibility to look out for people that are around me, and that means including their parents, because I'm not their parent, so I don't know everything that's happening in their life. I don't know all the nuance around everything. She says I'm not a spy for parents. You don't have a right to know that any more than you do my own sexual orientation and gender identity. So she's basically saying a parent has no more right to knowing the sexual conversations their minor is having with an adult than they do to having the sexual identity of a stranger. That's scary shit. That's scary that she thinks that. They obviously see us as the enemy, people. They obviously do not respect us as parents. She says, parents are demanding teachers tell them if their kid discloses anything related to LGBTQ. I'm not outing a kid to anyone if they tell me it's not okay. She says, what exactly am I teaching them? I teach them zero about anything discovering who they are. They make up their own minds. You're teaching them something very, 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 very harmful. You're teaching them it's acceptable to keep things from their parents, and their parents cannot be trusted with their well-being. That's what you're teaching them. They don't have the knowledge to make up their own minds about much of anything, let alone something this serious. Parents that let their children decide on their own if they're going to transition their gender, that's oh my God. I mean, that's morally reprehensible. If I let my kid choose what he wanted to eat for dinner every night, he'd probably eat sugar and drink Mountain Dew and eat ice cream and stuff. All four of them would. They chose it. I know it ain't good for them. Do I just let them get diabetes? Let's let them get overweight. Let them all. I mean, do I just do that? That's what you're saying here. Someone says no. Parents are demanding that teachers whose job is only to teach to stay out of their family matters. No one asked you to take on this role. No one wants you to take on this role. You have knighted yourself in this role. You're only a savior in your own mind. Bingo, right there. Once again, she says, I will fight for my kids and what I believe in. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but if your kid was my student and confides in me and asks me not to say, I'm not going to because I don't have to. I don't consider sexual orientation or gender identity a family matter. Your kid made it not one when they felt I could be trusted with that info and you couldn't. You believe what you want and parent how you want in your home, but make that home not a safe place for that kid. Then I'm going to do all I can to make it safe. Woo boy, is that how you talk to someone you see as a partner, as an ally in anything? But there it is. What this teacher and really what the entire public education system at large is all about. Again, I'm not saying the individual teachers. I'm just saying The people that you've anointed as your leaders, they are saying this. They are going to determine what's best for our kids. And as long as you agree with them, you're good. But the minute you go against them, now you're an insurrectionist. Now you're doing harm to your children. You don't care about your child's all around well-being. You don't care about their mental health. You don't keep them safe. You're not practicing kindness. But listen, this person obviously doesn't understand the nuances of parenting. I'm not sure that they even had a childhood themselves. I'm thinking maybe it's the spawn of Satan, and they were born as a 20-year-old University of Kentucky College of Education student. Maybe. So she goes on. When they're with me at school, I'm responsible for them. So it's not a family matter. Kids are still LGBTQ plus at school. It doesn't change. Just because you may not believe those issues are real doesn't mean they aren't. 0 comments that has been made in this thread or by me have stated that any of this shit isn't a real issue. It absolutely is. And yes, as a parent, I realize I got to have my mind right for if this stuff does happen. I got 4 kids. There's a very high likelihood that one of my children will come home and have one of these issues one day. And say that they're gay or lesbian or they're trans. It's a high likelihood, comparatively speaking, especially compared to 30, 40 years ago. So I got to be ready for that. No one's saying this isn't an issue. But you, as a teacher, seem to think that parents are just casting their kids' mental health to the side. And here's what I have to say to you. Kiss my redneck ass. You don't know me. I don't know you. I ain't trying to raise your kids. You shouldn't be trying to do this. You shouldn't be trying to cut me out of my own child's lives. You shouldn't be trying to make me an enemy because I'm buying into the system and agreeing that public education is important. And I'm trusting you to help me along the way with my child. That's what people are saying when they put their kid in the public education system. They're not saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm putting them there against my will." They're saying, "I trust you with them. You're part of my community." That's really what's being said, but we don't like to think about anything deep like that. So it goes on here to say, she goes on to say, God doesn't entrust me to do anything because God isn't in our schools, for one. Well, you're right about that. You are right about that. But your God, your little G God is. She says, not recognizing a kid's gender identity is something a parent could sue me for and I'd lose. It's not my job to protect parents. I don't work for you. She hitting it home again. But here's the deal. She probably is right. So all you state legislators that's still listening, and there are a few of you that will be listening to this. This is the sad state of things. It's your job now. You've been entrusted to go to the Capitol and enact legislation that protects children and keeps, again, you're not taking away freedoms. You're enshrining those freedoms and those responsibilities as a parent. No one's saying an individual parent can't go check out Not All Boys Are Blue from the public library and let their 8-year-old read it. Do I think it's immoral and that person's reprehensible? Yes, I do. Sorry. No one's saying you shouldn't be able to do that, though. We're saying it's your choice as a parent to do that. Okay, but legislators, she's right. She probably would lose if she outed the kid or told a child's parent something, and that child went and found a civil rights attorney and sued the teacher. She probably would lose for being honest with the parent. So I get it. So teachers aren't the enemy. The system is set up for failure because the people in power are letting the loud voices in the room control things, and they're leaving the system up for everybody can just point fingers at everybody. Is it the school board? Is it the principal? Is it the Board of Education? Is it the SBDM? Is it this? Is it that? Coach? What? Shut up. Put it in writing whose responsibility it is. But again, that whole, like, it's not my job to protect parents. I don't work for you. I mean, holy shit. I mean, what's going on with this person? I'm not ashamed of what I do at all to help kids. My employers are the ones who train me to do all this. In fact, we have an ongoing contract for training on LGBTQ plus issues in education for a whole year. I'm going to go ahead and say it. This person, she says she doesn't teach, but she says this in the thread. She's like, it's on my public profile where I live. She says she teaches outside her district. But this is in the, we'll call it the Fort Thomas Highlands area, the Northern Kentucky area. I was on a conference call earlier today with some people from Northern Kentucky. You need to look into this. All right? Again, it's a zero-sum game. You only got so much time at school. Every minute you take away from math, reading, science, it goes something else, you ain't getting it back. So, again, city I live in my public profile, she says that. Then here's the second verified Kentucky teacher from a totally different part of the state comes on and says, such and such, in response to the teacher, it is so obviously not grooming to run to out a kid to his or her parent. I'll never apologize for being a safe zone for young adults. I looked the person's name up. They are a teacher in Kentucky. Second verified teacher. When I think of outing a kid, again, I think of posting it on the gram, doing a little TikTok video or something, putting it in the newspaper, or telling people in a group at school, and telling the football team or the cheerleading squad or something. We are simply talking about withholding information from parents that would help them be better parents. Do you trust them or not? You don't, though. We know that because you don't trust them to make the right decision with masks, with vaccines, with anything. Okay, right on down from here. Third confirmed teacher from Kentucky. Whole another part of the state. So, third one. Now, I was a disclaimer. There was one teacher that repudiated all this stuff and said, this is terrible. And my parents are teammates and allies. And again, I'm willing to concede that this, even if this is a small percentage of the teaching profession, we're not talking about probabilities. We're talking about consequences. How many people does one bad teacher come into contact with? You have one bad teacher in a rural area where you have 3 schools. That he or she, obviously teacher can be male or female, may impact 10% of the student body. Or if they're the most popular teacher. Right, so again, I'm not talking about probabilities. I definitely don't think 100% of teachers think this stuff. My mom's a teacher. She still teaches. And she's not bad, and she doesn't believe in this stuff. But again, she doesn't have the personality to come out and go full-fledged against it. She's also not a member of the union or anything either. So third confirmed teacher says, until you're in a classroom with students who may be in a situation and scared to tell parents, do not assume teachers are taking power from parents. It's not that black and white. Oh, but it is. And you can make it that way. The minute you start making it gray is the minute you start making it hard to decide what you're going to choose to do. But if the deal is, hey, our system is we include parents and we see them as allies in the education process. The minute you make that statement and you make it clear, we're bringing parents into this, is the minute that, just is what it is, black and white. Then again, if there's a sincere safety issue or a fear of abuse or negligence or anything like that, we have a system in place for that. And you should be calling Child Protective Services and Social Services and getting them out there. You're not qualified to decide if something rises. If you hear about abuse, you're not qualified to decide if that abuse is bad enough to call CPS. You just need to report it and teach after that. Okay. This is that person coming back and saying the same thing again. I won't turn my back on a child who isn't accepted by parents, nor let them go down a very dark path because parents don't approve. You're not listening. The parents don't know because you haven't told them. And the person that I as a parent am supposed to trust the most with my child is keeping me in the dark and keeping me from being a better parent. I don't care if my kid's scared. My kid's scared, I'm going to find out they had 2 extra Oreos for dinner last night. They don't know how to judge that type of thing. If you're afraid I'm abusing you, you gotta go tell CPS. Tell the correct authorities, whatever the chain of command is in your deal. But if you're just afraid that, like, if they're just telling you they're afraid because I got mad when they ate a couple extra Oreos when I told them they could only have one, that's just not the same thing. Here's the big one, and I'll try to wrap it up after this. Okay. Someone says they used to work at a pregnant teen center, and they'd have a lot of dead teens had they not, had they allowed every pregnant teen to reason with them that they'd be dead if they told their parents, and they undermined the parent-child relationship the entire time. This person says, again, we are talking about young children, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. She says, I wouldn't tell a parent their kid is pregnant either. Bingo. Right there it is. She's been waiting to say that. And they all been saying, I mean, we might as well be Project Veritas here. James O'Keefe. That's the kind of stuff that he implants people in there trying to get people to say this kind of stuff. They're just saying it. And 2 other teachers from 2 different districts have came to her defense already. So we know of at least 3 that feel this same way. Hundreds of Kentucky children, hundreds of them are in contact with those 3 individuals. To me, that says it all. I wouldn't tell a parent their kid was pregnant either. She said, you're wrong in that respecting a student's wish to not tell parents something will lead to their suicide. It is, in fact, a lack of support from family, friends, and community that are the most common reasons why they have higher suicide rates. It doesn't have anything to do with me not telling a kid's parent something they don't want me to. False. I mean, like, there's no way of discerning that information. Because one of them didn't happen. So you don't know how the parents would have reacted and how they would have fostered that decision or that coming out or whatever. You didn't allow them to get support. This person is arrogant, self-righteous, ignorant. Fill in the blank. You can disagree with me all you want, but school isn't a safe place when kids are constantly worried every little thing they do is getting back to their parents. So is your goal to never upset a student? Never ask them hard questions? Or do you only pose those questions whenever it suits your interests or your values? Or your agenda? Probably the better word to use. What would you do differently parenting-wise if something like that was disclosed to you by your child? If nothing would change, then what difference does it make if you know or not? I absolutely would parent different. Absolutely. If I know my kid's dealing with something with an astonishingly high suicidal ideation rate, or if I knew my minor child was having conversations of a sexual nature with an adult other than myself and my wife and their mother, and more importantly, that information was being kept secret from me, I absolutely parent different. My first parenting action in this scenario would be to make sure that my kid never stepped foot in your classroom again and that everyone in the community knew about you. I'd put you on blast. If you're a dude, I'm probably going to whoop your ass. Just being honest with you. And I ain't even that good at fighting. But I'm probably going to have a fit of rage. And I'm coming. So yes, I would parent differently. Crazy people. Says, I don't know exactly how you think this great fall of education system is going to happen, but I guarantee you it's not because of social justice or LGBTQ issues or me keeping a secret from parents. Parents are legally required to be told when their kid is at risk of harming themselves, harming others, or being abused. I thought it was only if it was a homicidal, suicidal. You keep flaking there. You get a report card for their grades and phone calls about behavior at school. You can request the school records for your kid as well. You aren't legally entitled to anything else, so stop being righteous about it. You have no legal rights to know anything else other than those things. So grades, certain behaviors. You phone calls about behavior. We're talking about behavior here. What are you talking about? You can call and request school records. You aren't legally entitled to anything else. My response is simply being transgender means that you meet the definition of being at risk of harming yourself, others, or being abused. Am I wrong? I'm not being mean about that. Am I wrong? I don't think I am. Because I'm unapologetic in what I said, and I will say it every day until the day I die. Teachers do not have to tell parents things that are going on in their lives. If you want to fight back and get a law passed that says we do, go for it. Don't worry, honey bun. Daddy's gonna be down there. I will be there. I've saw what we've done, and we just started getting organized in the last 6 months. So don't worry. We are. And if you continue doing what you're doing, if I have anything to do with it, you definitely won't have a job, but you hope you won't be working with children any longer. She says, that's why so many people are killing themselves. Add in people and kids of color or people from poverty to the LGBTQ plus positive, and it's even more at risk. She keeps telling us she knows why everything's happening, but she doesn't have any data backing it up. Then you see the desperation. Then she brings in the big guns to stifle all debate. All right, because she brings in people and kids of color. She brings in people of color. Oh, now you really can't talk because no one's allowed to talk about that, of race. Oh, man. So that's when you can always know people are full of shit when they start bringing that kind of stuff in. Poverty, yada. No one's saying, like, these are totally different conversations. And ones that I'm totally happy to have. And listen, Pinky will be on here tomorrow, and I hope he screams at me and has some things to say that I'm wrong here. I'm open to these things. I'm willing to have the conversations. All right. I think I got one other part here I want to make sure I read to you. She goes on, makes it public. If you aren't a parent in my district and you don't have any standing to complain about anything, my secret keeping isn't going to affect you in any way. I guarantee you that many teachers in your kid's district do the exact same thing. I do know Fort Thomas teachers do the exact same thing I do. It's not something that's unique to any one district. Every district is adopting policies regarding transgender students. And the last comment was, this has got to stop. The plan seems to be destroy the family unit, and I would agree with that. And this is what I had to say. It's one of my comments. You do realize that children are not adults, and they are absolutely not mature enough to make the assumptions or decisions you're leaving up to them and them alone. I'd make the argument that you and only you are for sure putting these children at risk. You can try and make yourself feel good all you want because some 12-year-old wants to tell you a secret, but make no mistake about it, you are putting those kids at risk. You are keeping those parents in the dark. You are perpetually driving stakes between families, and you undoubtedly end up with blood on your hands because we all know the suicide rate amongst these children. The fact you wouldn't tell a parent that a minor was pregnant really says all that needs to be said. You may be a nice person. You have no business in the crucial position you are in as an educator. You obviously see parents as enemies first and yourself as an equal stakeholder in their child's lives. As many others have already expressed, when the day comes, and it will come, the public education system collapses, you will only have yourself to blame. And maybe in the end we'll be thanking you because it could have been worse and people with your stance could have continued lurking in the shadows and destroying countless lives along the way for another decade without any of us becoming aware. Thank goodness that is not the case. So that's what I had to say about that. So I've told you all these things. I've read all this. I know some of y'all may be bored, but I think it's riveting stuff here. Whenever you hear that, you hear these teachers backing up this other teacher, and then you hear these legislators. Let's go back. Let's listen to this. Hold on one second. Let's go right back to this. Hold on. Let's listen to Killian Timony again. Here we go. Boom. There it is. So I'm interested in what all you all have to say. Where I'm wrong, where I'm right, where I'm missing it. You know, it's awful. No one wants kids going through this kind of stuff. You know, we are in a new day where new things are happening, and we gotta figure it out. But we can't move forward if our public education system sees us as enemies, and that they're in partnership with our federal government, making threats that they'll lose funding, because that gives them gives them the cloak to hide behind, because everyone knows they can't hold their federal government accountable for anything. So if they're in cahoots with one another, our public education system, our federal government, our state legislators that say they're Republicans and conservatives that are not, we can't move forward if we don't recognize the situation we're in, and we don't demand accountability and call spades spades and be willing to be called bad names and all that stuff. I know I love my kids. I know I love the kids I coach. I don't love them as much as their parents do, but I love them. I know I love my spouse and her family. I know I got much love for a lot of people, respect for a lot of people. But I will never get in between that parent-child relationship. It's just not my place. I will always keep parents in the loop on their kids' development. And as a coach, those conversations they're talking about here would have me in handcuffs if I was having them with children and not disclosing them. I don't go in the bathroom if I know there's one little kid in there. I'm not going in there by myself. I'm going to wait on that kid to get out, because it's inappropriate. So we gotta say what this stuff is, and a lot of it's just evil stuff, right? Like, care who you believe in, what you believe in, whatever. Like, I think everybody believes in good and bad, right and wrong, evil and not evil. But parents aren't the problem here. We're being painted as the problem, and they're setting it up. They're setting it up for something bigger. Whether you want to be a conspiracy theorist or not, it's all played out in front of our eyes. So listen to what they tell you. Listen to what they tell you. Listen to this good old country adage. When somebody tells you they're a son of a bitch, believe them. Be nice. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Be respectful. Until then, when they tell you that, things change. They just told us. Again, I challenged my mother this weekend. I said, listen, you're the safeguard for a lot of these children. They do trust you more than anyone else on the planet. If you let them down, you got to live with that. Are you letting them down more by including their parents in any situation, or are you letting them down more by internalizing it and making it all your responsibility when you know you're putting your children and your grandchildren and your nieces and nephews and your siblings and your husband, and you're putting all of them before that child? Which route are you going to let them down more likely? And that's a no-brainer. No one can argue otherwise. So, again, I look forward to hearing what y'all have to say, where I'm missing things, all that stuff. Again, I don't want to hear this rare. Most of you don't feel this way. I don't teach that stuff explicitly in my classroom. You probably do and don't even know it, and it's not your fault. And the more I like study this stuff, I'm like, holy cow, this stuff is permeating into every aspect of education, of the education system. But one thing's sure, your unions and your administrators are fully aware that they're implementing these programs. and these topics and these assignments and these books, these pornographic material. You know, like when it comes to young kids, another thing, if I haven't said this, and I need to make sure I do say this, is my oldest is 8. He isn't ready. He doesn't know how to discuss like heterosexual matters. He doesn't know how babies are made, but he doesn't know how his siblings are made. So I'm not necessarily arguing they should only know about straight stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that kids, you're making like assumptions based on your own judgment on when you think kids are ready for it. But here's the deal: who deals with the fallout? If you teach a kid something when they're 8 and they don't even know how to talk about it when they go home, and they're just having to deal with that stuff in their own mind, they see like a straight sex illustration in a book, and I don't know that as a parent. How am I going to help foster that into a healthy vision, healthy thing in their head? Yeah, I read a book one time. It's like Strong Mother, Strong Father, Strong Daughters. And it was talking about how this little girl had a very negative, it was like sex just really, she hated her dad. She loved her dad at first, and then something happened, and she started going through puberty, and she started hating her dad, right? Come to find out, she starts going to therapy. She finds out that the girl had been hiding it, like when we go up the stairs or whatever, and was watching the TV in the living room while the parents were watching TV, and she saw like a rape scene. But in her mind, that's how she saw that. And then it started talking about how, she started learning about sex and all stuff. That was what she saw sex as. And so she thought her father had done that to her mother. And she hated him for it. But he couldn't even talk to her about it because he didn't know it had happened. And in that situation, no one did anything to her. It was an accident for her to see that. And she connected those dots. But we're setting kids up for failure, and it breaks my heart. So we're almost 2 hours in here, hour and 45 minutes. Appreciate y'all listening. Again, it's a very tough topic. I appreciate your comments, appreciate your subscriptions, your all that stuff. Listen to the Way Too Much JRMC podcast, all that. Thanks for your time. If anything, I hope this episode gets you thinking and gets you doing some research and things like that on what's happening in your schools. Maybe ask some of your teachers around you that, how they feel about some of these topics, because we can't assume anymore that people think one thing or the other. We just got to cut to the chase, right? So that's what we got to do. So I got to get off here. I'm about to go get me a little run in, a little workout in before football practice, and it's about to be the hottest part of the day. For y'all that don't know me, if I'm gonna run, I will run when it's hot. I'm gonna sweat, baby. If I'm gonna do it, I might as well do it. So again, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Way Too Much JRMC. Go to my YouTube channel, Way Too Much JRMC. Or you can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Twitcher, I think is what it's called. Something like that. Stitcher or something. Find me on all those things. Give me good feedback, bad feedback, all that stuff.